Start Parsha Vayeira, the last mimer of Nesivos Shalom. Nasata lirecha neslis nases. We see that by Avram Avinu, we see it was given nisyonos. He was given tests. Now we all get tests. We all get things that we are tested upon on a daily basis, on a hourly basis, and probably even more than that. But we see that Avram Avinu, it was the 10 tests that he went through were something that we see it's very unique by Avram, and we don't see that by anyone else, even by his son Yitzchak, Yaakov. We don't see it at all. So first of all, why is that? Why is it that we see these 10 tests by Avram and not by the other of us, his Yitzchak and Yaakov? And also, what is the meaning of the word that it's called a nisayon? A test is called by that name. Why is it called nisayon? What is it? What is the meaning of it behind it? So Nesivos Shalom explains that first of all we have to get a little background of who Avram Avinu was. Avram Avinu was known to be the Oihavi. Hashem called him my love. He was so close to him, he called him my love. How did Avram gain that title? And one of the answers is that he gained that title because of the fact that it wasn't, one might think, is because of the fact that he kept all of Torah, right, before it was given. But ever since there's Avram Avinu was the first Jew, and all the time there was no such thing as the world would be existing if a Jew wasn't keeping Torah. A Jew is at least one Jew was always keeping Torah. So the fact that Avram Avinu kept all Torah is not the reason why he was called my love by Hashem. So therefore, what was the reason? The reason is that he was able to withstand all 10 tests. Okay? So the question is, a lot of us go through tests. What's the difference? Why Avram and why was it so special?
Why am I not considered loved?
So who says you're not? But why was Avram Avinu in such a high level? What happened? So in order to understand this, we have to understand what an nisayon is, what a test is, and what's the shorish of the word. The shorish of the word is nes. Nes as like the same word as miracle, which also can be related to miracle, but we're going to talk about the other relationship with when we see it says Elokim nisa es Avram, when Hashem tested Avram, and it says the word nisa. Chaim, if you can close the door, please. Thank you so much. If we look, we see that by Elokim nisa es Avram was Hashem tested Avram. We see the word nes, and we know that there's a Gemara that says, I think it's Rabbi Glili says that Gadlo kanes, that he raised him up. He made Avram great like a nes, like a banner. Okay, nes means a banner, like we have any banner, but also like on a ship. Okay, on a ship, there's these sails, those big sails at the top, and they go. The higher they are, the more they are able to be seen, and you can see them from far. So that is the lashon, the language of nes, which is banner. And it says, and there's a pasuk in Tehillim that says, "Nasata lirecha nes lisnoseis," that you gave to your the ones who fear you. Hashem gives to the one who fears Him a nes, a test to be able to make them greater. Okay, and in order to do that, when we see that Hashem is, when He gives the test to Avram Avinu, He gives the test in the form of His attribute of justice. Okay, and the attribute of justice, because we see Elokim, it doesn't use Hashem Nisas Avram, it uses Elokim, because when Hashem is giving a test, a real test, it means that the person is in a very low level, meaning he's suffering through whatever he is suffering through, whatever that is that is tough for him, and if he's able to withstand even through that great suffering, then he's passing the test. Okay, and that's exactly what Avram Avinu went through. We see that also by Yosef Tzaddik, that Yosef is, all of his brothers, all of the Shvatim were considered tzaddikim, were all righteous, but he was the only one with the title Yosef Tzaddik. Okay, because of what he went through, and even though he wasn't around, a lot of we know that the community is very important to Judaism, right? And especially when we're talking about, in order for a ger to be accepted, we have to know that he's going to live in a Jewish community, because otherwise he has no chance, right? So, too, by Yosef Tzaddik, he had the opposite. Yosef didn't have the ability, because he had what did he have? Yosef was living in the most impure part of the world, okay, and he was the only Jew, and yet he was able to withstand the steps. Yeah.
There's no screen.
It's all good.
I'll stand here and make sure the phone's okay.
So we see that Avram Avinu was able to withstand everything, and therefore he became this closeness to God, closeness to Hashem. So how does that work? So we know that in Pirkei Avos it says that there's two different types of love. A love that is connected with something, and it's dependent upon something, and a love that isn't. So an unconditional love is a love that lasts. A love that is conditioned, dependent upon something, then it's not going to last, because once that something goes away, then there's no more love. And we see by Avram Avinu that Avram was able to withstand that love through and through, and he was not. It didn't diminish in any way because of what he went through. As a matter of fact, it became like a second nature. Avram Avinu's love to Hashem became like a second nature. So much so that we see in this, the last test in this week's Parsha of the Akedah, that we see that Avram Avinu, it's something, he doesn't mention it here, but I'm pretty sure it's from the Nesivos Shalom in a different place. Avram Avinu, it says that Avram Avinu went and he sent his arm. It says, Vayishtach Avram Siyado Vayikach es macheles. He sent his arm, his hand, and he took the knife. So we know that there's no extra letter in the Torah. What is the reason for when we say that Avram sent his hand and he took the knife? Wouldn't it be more simpler to just say he took the knife? We know that he takes the knife not with his foot, he took it with his hand. It's obvious, right? So the Nesivos Shalom says that Avram Avinu came to such a level that, and all the Avos, they came to such a level that they were able to, their limbs did the will of Hashem automatically, and it was an automatic thing. And so when we see that by Moshe Rabbeinu, it says that Hashem told him that they're not allowed to go to the mountain. Not allowed to go to the mountain, only Moshe was going to Har Sinai. And then we see again, Hashem tells him to put a fence around the mountain. When Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, the nation already knows they can't go, right? So we see that Hashem tells him, no, still make the fence. What's going on over there? And not only that, Moshe uses the word they can't. They're not able. Now, everybody knows they were able to go to the mountain, but they were not allowed to. There's a difference. So why is Moshe saying they weren't able? And the answer I heard from a friend of mine from Yeshiva in Riverdale, he says that he said like this. He said that when a person goes, he's on top of 10 steps, and somebody tells him to jump down, he says, I don't want to, right? I'm not interested. But if somebody tells you on top of a very tall building to jump down, your first reaction would be, I can't, even though you could, right? But you can't because you don't want to hurt yourself, right? So Moshe Rabbeinu was at that point, at that level, where Hashem's told him not to do something. That means he can't. It's not possible for him to do it because Hashem said no. And Avram Avinu, it says that Avram, his limbs did Hashem's will, meaning that Hashem, in the essence, Hashem did not want Avram to kill Yitzchak, right? So therefore, when he went to take the knife, his hand wasn't working because Hashem didn't really want. But his knowledge, his brain knew that Hashem told him he had to. So he had to force his hand to take the knife, right? That's what he had to do. He had to force his hand to take the knife. And therefore, we see from this that Avram Avinu was able to do that in such a way that he went against his own. Not just that we know that Avram was a man of, for anybody who had such a test to kill someone, it would be a hard test, right? But on top of that, to kill someone's son, that's like, the hardest of the hardest. But not only that, when it comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, to Avram Avinu was the kindest person. He was the person that was went out of his way to look out to do any kindness for any stranger, for anybody. And on top of that, we know that he, as much as he loved his son Yishmael, Hashem said, all the promises that I'm giving you has nothing to do with Yishmael. It's not going to be with Yishmael. It has to do with Yitzchak. And Yitzchak didn't have children yet. And he's telling him to kill him. So it's like against all sense, all emotion, everything. And yet, Avram goes ahead and pushes himself to use his hand against his will, against the will of Hashem.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe Avram had the pre-thought of maybe Hashem's kind of messing with me, and that is this a trick question?
I don't think so. I'll tell you why. Because the Medrash says, it's a good thought. It is. According to whatever we're saying here, it makes sense what you're saying. But we also know that Avram went through. There was a whole bunch of things that Avram was going through that time of on his way going to the place where he was supposed to shech Yitzchak, and the Yetzer Hara was trying to stop him, and it came to a point where he went into a river. The water got higher and higher, and he was, he said, "Agil mayim nafish," that the water is coming so high, I'm not going to be able to live. So he kept on davening and praying to Hashem that he needs this to happen. And I'm sure also you have to understand that Avram Avinu knew that nothing is going to come easy, right? So all these, manias, all these the things that held him back, he understood that to be it could be that he understood that to be that this is part of his test, that it's not going to be easy. You understand? And yet he's still going to go through it. That's why he tried and tried further and more. And the last thing that the other question that we had was the question of. Do you think did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So of course.
When he was drowning?
He was also drowning. I was about to drown.
On his way to the chef?
Yeah.
You started to daven?
Yeah. So the other question we had was, why is it that it was only by Avram and not by Yitzchak, Yaakov? Why did they have tests? Like, of course, we all have tests, but the question is why it's like so. The 10 tests of Avram. And by the way, I have a sefer that I got years back that it's called the 10 tests. It's called Asar Nisyonos. And what it does is it goes through and explains how each test of Avram was really what we go through on a regular basis. The test of the famine was our test of parnasa, livelihood. Everything that we go through, it's really
The 10 steps to eternity.
it's all the 10 tests of Avram was the test that we go through. And it's a book about this
What was
thick.
the
Article, right?
Keda?
That's a good question. But if you think about it, I have to look in the sefer to be exact. But it's doing something that is against your son's will, doing something that you don't want to do with your son,
Right.
make you want it to be more comfortable, more this.
It could be even with parts of ourselves that like sacrificing things.
Right.
For our own personal-
Absolutely, right. So
Yes,
what?
also Abraham Avinu's telling the whole world not to do this type of stuff.
Exactly,
He was-
right. I forgot to mention that part. Yes,
he was
absolutely,
teaching the whole world, you got to stop with child sex. It was very
Right.
common in the world.
right.
Then that was a test, like
You-
go
Do exactly the opposite, which
exactly what you were teaching everybody.
right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. And so I heard from a friend of mine's brother, Rabbi Buxman. He says that a person who be able to come to his perfection, to come into his ability to really serve Hashem the best way, is to totally turn himself around from his nature. If his nature is one way, to do the totally opposite. And we see that by Avram, like you're mentioning, he totally did not want to do such thing as as to kill someone. And not only did he have to, he has to kill his son, right? And he was also a man of kindness, right? So it was really, he was the epitome of kindness. And then we see by Yitzchak, also Yitzchak, it says that Rivka loved Yaakov and Yitzchak loved Esau, right? In 2 weeks from now, we're going to see that, right? So we see that Yitzchak, who was he was such the epitome of gvura, din, that he he was so strict upon himself. And usually, when a person is strict upon himself, he's going to expect that of at least his level of strictness at the same that everybody else should be the same level, right? So if we we know that Yitzchak, by the Akedah, when Avraham tied him to the Mizbeach, Yitzchak said, tie it tighter, because he was afraid that if he would move, it would be the carbon would be puzzled, right? So having said this, we see that, wait a second, so Yitzchak was so strict, and yet not only did he not expect Esav or people to be as strict as him, but he accepted and loved Esav for what he was. So that was going totally against his nature. So the other question that we didn't answer yet is that
Yeah, Leaf was on his lap.
what?
Yeah, Leaf was on his lap.
Okay.
That's what's saying with the Yaakov Avinu.
What do you mean? Yeah, but that we're
The
mixed
Stapler
up.
has a whole thing on this.
I understand, but I don't think that really, unless you explain to me what you mean, how that.
That's what I'm doing, that's what's going on
Okay,
with that.
that's what I thought. Okay, so we know that, so it became like a second nature to Avram Avinu, and but the question is, why is it that Avram was the only one that had the 10 nisyanos as opposed to Yitzchak and Yaakov? So we know from the Agada, mitchila oivdei avodah zarah hayu avosenu. At the beginning, our ancestors were of the avodah zarah. We know that Avram's father was not only over the avodah zarah, but he was also he was selling it, right? He was a merchant, right? Biggest dealer in town, right? And on top of that, that was everybody. The whole world at that point was worshiping idols. So it was the against nature. That's why Avram was called the Ivri, the Hebrew, because Avram, he was the other side of everybody else. Everybody else was on one side worshiping idols, and he was on totally the other side. And because of that, he had to change his whole nature. How was he going to change his own nature? He had to go through all the 10 aspects of his life, those 10 main things of his life, to be able to withstand and pass those tests. Then he would be able to change his nature. But until then, he didn't. Whereas Yitzchak and Yaakov, they didn't have to. They grew up in Avram's house, and they were fine. They didn't have that nature of worshiping idols. So the honest truth is that each and every Jew has tests, and not only do we have tests, that is the only way that we can get up to the next level. We're always getting up, using these. It's like a mistake that we made. We use it as a step stool to go higher, but a test is even more so, because a test, it usually happens when the harder tests happen when we're down, when we're upset about something, when I lost my job or this, whatever it is, that I went down in my greatness in some sort, and then I have a test on top of that. That's when it becomes the hardest, and it's like the Jews' darkness. When we have that darkness and we have a test then, and we are still able to withstand that test, then we have true love of Hashem. Then we are showing our true love of Hashem. And B'Hashem Yisrael, we should be zocha to have the true love of Hashem. And one of the ways to have the skula, to be able to have that closeness and that love to Hashem, is to love His children and to be able to have unity, which is really what's going to bring us Mashiach b'meher v'imenu. Amen.